Narcissists operate on a foundation of power, an illusion they work tirelessly to maintain. At the heart of their behavior lies a fundamental need to dominate the emotional and psychological landscape of those around them. This power is not based on genuine strength or competence, but rather on an elaborate and fragile illusion designed to mask deep-seated insecurity. The moment you walk away from a narcissist, you deliver a devastating blow to that illusion. It's not just an act of physical or emotional distance. It is a profound rejection of their control, and nothing dismantles their carefully curated reality faster. To understand why walking away is so impactful, we must first grasp the psychology behind a narcissist's need for control. A narcissist's self-emission is inherently unstable. At their core, they are not the confident, superior beings they project to the world. Instead, they are often haunted by feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness. But instead of confronting these feelings, they construct a false persona, one that is grandiose, infallible, and deserving of constant admiration. This false self requires external validation to survive, and the easiest way for the narcissist to obtain it is by controlling those around them. When they can manipulate your thoughts and emotions, it reinforces their belief that they are powerful and superior. This is why your presence is so valuable to them. Every interaction, whether positive or negative, feeds their need for validation. When you argue with a narcissist, they win because you're still engaged. When you defend yourself against their accusations, they win because they've drawn you back into their frame of reality. Even when you attempt to reason with them, they twist your words to maintain their dominance. As long as you remain in the narcissist's orbit, you are unknowingly affirming their illusion of control. But the moment you walk away, everything changes. Suddenly, the narrative they've constructed begins to crumble. They can no longer pull the strings. Your absence is a direct contradiction to the idea that they are omnipotent. If they truly had the control they believed they did, you would still be there, subject to their manipulation. But your decision to leave sends a clear and undeniable message. You are not under their power. And for a narcissist, few things are more threatening than the realization that they do not possess absolute control. What makes walking away so devastating is that it is an action they cannot counter. Narcissists are skilled at manipulating conversations, deflecting blame, and distorting reality. But when you remove yourself from their influence, you take away their most potent weapon, access to your mind. Without your presence, they are left to grapple with their own insufficiency, and the reality they so desperately tried to avoid begins to close in on them. They are no longer able to extract the attention and emotional energy that sustain their false sense of superiority. And here is the deeper truth. By walking away, you reveal a reality the narcissist cannot bear to confront. They are not as powerful as they believe. This revelation is deeply unsettling for them because their entire identity depends on the opposite being true. The control they once held over you gave them a sense of invincibility, a shield against their own inner emptiness. You leave, you pierce that illusion and force them to face the terrifying possibility that they are in fact powerless without an audience to manipulate. The impact of this extends beyond the immediate moment of your departure. Narcissists often build a narrative in which they are either the hero or the victim. Your absence disrupts that story. Without you present, they lose the ability to frame the relationship on their terms. They can no longer spin your behavior to others or twist reality to make themselves appear superior. They are left with a void that no amount of manipulation can fill. And this is why walking away is so uniquely effective. It doesn't just challenge their illusion of power, it dismantles the entire framework that sustains their false identity. The crucial thing to understand is that walking away is not a passive act. It is an assertion of your autonomy and dignity. It is a refusal to participate in a reality where your worth is diminished and your voice is silenced. And while the narcissist may attempt to regain control through various means, hoovering, guilt-tripping, or smear campaigns, the power dynamic has already shifted. You have demonstrated the one truth they cannot unsee. Their control only exists if you allow it. In the end, your decision to walk away does more than free you from the narcissist's grip. It exposes a fundamental vulnerability they cannot escape. It forces them to confront the limits of their power and the reality of their own inadequacy. And while they may scramble to restore their illusion, something has already broken inside them. The game they have played so confidently no longer works as it once did. And in that moment, the illusion collapses under its own weight. When you walk away, you do more than escape the narcissist's control. You shatter the very foundation on which their false power rests. And once that illusion is broken, it becomes something they can never fully rebuild. At the core of a narcissist's worldview is an insatiable hunger for validation, a craving so profound that it shapes their every interaction. This is not the ordinary human desire to be seen or appreciated. No, for a narcissist, validation is a psychological lifeline. It is the fuel that sustains their fragile sense of self. Without it, their entire identity begins to unravel, and nothing deprives them of this essential fuel more effectively than your decision to walk away. To grasp the magnitude of this impact, you must first understand the nature of what psychologists call narcissistic supply. This term refers to the emotional resources a narcissist extracts from those around them: attention, admiration, even conflict. It doesn't matter whether the energy they receive is positive or negative. What matters is that they remain the focal point of your thoughts. Every time you engage, whether through praise, defense, or argument, you are providing that supply. You are confirming their significance, and this to a narcissist is everything. Your presence represents a continuous stream of this psychological nourishment. As long as you stay within their orbit, you are a source of energy they can exploit. Whether they are charming you with grandiose promises or provoking you into defending yourself, the result is the same. You remain emotionally entangled. This entanglement is not accidental. It is the product of deliberate, calculated manipulation. The narcissist carefully engineers situations that keep you off balance, fostering a sense of dependency while reinforcing their dominance. And as long as you stay, the illusion of their power remains intact. But the moment you walk away, this system collapses. The narcissist is suddenly cut off from their supply. The emotional energy they relied upon vanishes, leaving an unbearable void. This absence strikes at the very foundation of their psychological structure. Without a constant flow of external validation, the carefully crafted facade of superiority begins to crack, exposing the emptiness beneath. And make no mistake, this emptiness is terrifying to them. It is the very thing they have spent their lives trying to avoid. What makes this especially devastating is that a narcissist cannot generate self-worth from within. A healthy individual possesses an internal reservoir of value, a sense of identity that remains stable even when external circumstances shift. But the narcissist lacks this capacity. Their self-premission is entirely dependent on how others perceive them. Without the mirror of your attention reflecting back their importance, they are left face to face with a truth they cannot bear. That without external validation, they feel profoundly insignificant. And this is precisely why your absence is so destructive. When you walk away, you disrupt the entire dynamic that sustains their illusion of control. They are no longer able to draw from your emotional reserves. They can no longer shape your reality to align with their narrative. For the narcissist, this represents more than a loss of influence. It is an existential threat. It forces them to confront the hollowness they have spent a lifetime denying. What is particularly striking is how powerless they become when you remove yourself from the equation. While they are skilled at manipulating interactions when you are present, they are remarkably inept at dealing with absence. They cannot control what they cannot reach. And this is the paradox of their power. It only functions when you remain engaged. By stepping away, you render their primary tool of manipulation useless. This deprivation often triggers what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a profound wound to their ego. And this injury is not simply emotional discomfort. It is a fundamental destabilization of their identity. You walk away, you are not just rejecting their behavior, you are rejecting the illusion they have worked so hard to maintain. You are sending a message, both explicit and implicit, that they are not as powerful as they believe themselves to be. And for someone whose entire identity revolves around the illusion of superiority, this message is devastating. In the wake of your absence, the narcissist will often scramble to restore their supply. They may resort to desperate measures, attempting to draw you back through guilt, manipulation, or even threats. This is not because they care about you in any meaningful sense. It is because they cannot tolerate the void your absence creates. But the longer you remain detached, the more that void grows. It forces the narcissist to confront a truth they cannot escape, that their power only ever existed because you allowed it. And this is the ultimate consequence of walking away. It forces the narcissist to face themselves. Stripped of their ability to extract validation from you, they are left alone with the emptiness they sought to avoid. This confrontation is not just painful, it is shattering. It undermines the very foundation of their psychological world, leaving them unmoored and exposed. When you choose to walk away, you do more than reclaim your autonomy. You dismantle the illusion that sustains the narcissist's control. You deprive them of the emotional energy that feeds their fragile sense of superiority. And in doing so, you force them to confront the reality they fear the most, that without your engagement, their power disintegrates. And that is a truth they cannot escape. One of the most striking aspects of walking away from a narcissist is the profound disruption it causes to their carefully curated narrative. Narcissists do not simply manipulate people on a surface level. They craft an entire story in which they are always the central character. This story is not just for the world's benefit. It is also a story they tell themselves to maintain a sense of coherence and superiority. In their narrative, they are always the one in control, the one who is indispensable, desired, and untouchable. And as long as you remain within their orbit, you unwittingly play a role in sustaining this illusion. Your participation, whether through compliance, conflict, or emotional investment, reinforces the script they've written. By reacting to their provocations or seeking their approval, you confirm their importance. You become a character in their story, and this provides them with a sense of validation and power. The narcissist's narrative depends on others playing along because it cannot sustain itself in isolation. It needs external reinforcement. Without an audience, the performance loses its meaning. When you walk away, you effectively shatter this narrative. You withdraw the validation that their story depends upon, and in doing so, you dismantle their ability to maintain the illusion of control. Suddenly, they are faced with an outcome they cannot spin, a reality where someone has rejected their authority and refused to conform to their expectations. This is not merely a blow to their ego, it is a threat to the entire psychological structure they have constructed to defend against feelings of inadequacy. What makes this so devastating is that the narcissist's identity is not grounded in truth. It is built on a fragile and carefully guarded illusion. They work tirelessly to present an image of superiority and control, but underneath this facade lies a deep and often unacknowledged insecurity. This insecurity is what drives their relentless need to dominate others. They cannot tolerate the idea that they are not as powerful or as indispensable as they believe themselves to be. And nothing confronts them with that reality more forcefully than your decision to walk away. Your absence punctures the fantasy they have worked so hard to maintain. It sends an undeniable message. Their power is not absolute. Their ability to manipulate and control is limited. And for someone whose entire self-worth is tethered to the belief that they are above others, this realization is intolerable. It forces them to confront a truth they have spent their entire lives avoiding, that they are, in fact, that they are not as all-knowing or invincible as they would like to believe. What makes this confrontation so psychologically jarring for the narcissist is that their entire emotional survival depends on maintaining their narrative. Without it, they are left with an unbearable void, a sense of emptiness they are unequipped to manage. This is why they react so intensely when someone disrupts their storyline. It's not just that they lose control over another person, it's that they lose control over themselves. Without external validation reinforcing their narrative, the inner chaos they have been suppressing begins to surface. And here is the key point. When you walk away, you introduce an element of unpredictability that the narcissist cannot tolerate. Their narrative is a closed system, a predictable script where they dictate the roles others play. But your decision to leave upends that script. It introduces a reality that they cannot manipulate or explain away. And because narcissists are fundamentally incapable of true self-reflection, they cannot reconcile your independence with their belief in their own omnipotence. This creates a profound psychological dissonance, a gap between their internal fantasy and external reality that they cannot bridge. This dissonance does not simply fade away, it festers. It gnaws at the edges of their carefully constructed identity, forcing them to reckon with a truth they cannot accept, that their control is an illusion, dependent entirely on the willingness of others to participate. And once you remove yourself from that dynamic, you expose just how fragile their power truly is. What is perhaps most powerful about this process is that it does not require you to engage in conflict or retaliation. You do not need to argue with them or seek to dismantle their narrative directly. Your absence does the work for you. By refusing to participate, you deprive the narcissist of the energy they need to sustain their illusion. And in doing so, you deliver the most devastating blow possible, not through confrontation, but through indifference. This is why walking away is so powerful. It forces the narcissist to confront the one truth they cannot escape, that their power only exists as long as others are willing to play along. And when you refuse to play your part, their entire world begins to crumble. What they fear most is not anger or opposition, it is irrelevance. It is the realization that without your engagement, they have no power at all. And this is the truth that lingers long after you've left. That the strength they claim to possess was never truly their own. It was always borrowed from those who believed in their illusion, and once you walk away, that illusion dies. One of the most unsettling consequences for a narcissist when you walk away is the profound loss of their psychological leverage. Narcissists, by their very nature, thrive on control, specifically the ability to shape and dictate your emotional responses. Their tactics are often subtle but calculated: guilt-tripping, gaslighting, love-bombing, followed by devaluation and a host of other manipulative behaviors designed to keep you tethered to their influence. The essence of this manipulation lies in creating a dynamic where you second-guess yourself while remaining emotionally invested in their approval or validation. When you remove yourself from that equation, you strip them of the one thing they cannot tolerate losing: power over your mind. Control for the narcissist is not simply about domination for its own sake. It serves a deeper psychological function. It soothes the chronic insecurity and internal chaos that they work tirelessly to conceal. Narcissists do not possess the internal mechanisms necessary to regulate their self-worth. Instead, they rely on external sources, you, for instance, to provide a continuous flow of validation. And not just positive validation, but any emotional energy you expend in their direction. Even your distress feeds their need for control because it confirms their ability to affect your internal world. As long as they can dictate how you feel, they remain psychologically stable, at least on the surface. But when you walk away, that supply is cut off. The narcissist is left standing without the emotional feedback loop they rely upon. This creates an internal vacuum, a silence that exposes the emotional void they work so desperately to escape. Without you to manipulate, without your reactions to fuel their sense of superiority, the facade begins to crack. This is why they react so intensely to losing control. It is not simply a matter of bruised pride, it is an existential threat. Your absence disrupts their ability to maintain the illusion of dominance, and in doing so, it forces them to confront the very feelings of inadequacy they have spent a lifetime avoiding. What is crucial to understand here is that the narcissist's need for control is rooted in a profound fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability to them is synonymous with weakness. It represents the possibility of being exposed, rejected, or abandoned. All experiences they find intolerable because they cut to the core of the narcissist's fragile self-image. This is why they invest so much energy in controlling others. It is a defense mechanism, a way to prevent anyone from ever holding power over them in return. When you walk away, you reverse this dynamic. You shift the balance of power by demonstrating that you are beyond their reach. And in doing so, you trigger one of the narcissist's deepest fears: helplessness. This fear is often masked by rage or indifference, but beneath the surface lies an overwhelming sense of impotence. They cannot control what they cannot touch. They cannot manipulate someone who refuses to engage. And nothing is more psychologically destabilizing for a narcissist than the realization that their tactics no longer work. Moreover, your decision to walk away represents a form of self-assertion that is profoundly threatening to the narcissist's worldview. Narcissists operate under the assumption that their needs, their desires, and their version of reality are the only ones that matter. By removing yourself from their influence, you challenge this assumption in the most direct way possible. You assert that your autonomy, your mental clarity, and your emotional well-being are beyond their grasp. This is not just a personal rejection, it is a direct refutation of the narcissist's belief that they are the center of the universe. And here lies the heart of why walking away is so devastating to their sense of control. It forces them to reckon with a reality they cannot change. Narcissists are adept at twisting narratives, revising history, and manipulating perceptions to maintain their dominance, but they cannot twist your absence. They cannot rewrite the reality that you chose to leave. And this immutable fact disrupts their psychological equilibrium in ways they cannot easily recover from. The aftermath of losing control over you often plunges the narcissist into a state of psychological turmoil. Deprived of their primary source of validation, they are left with their own unresolved insecurities. This can manifest in desperate attempts to regain control, hoovering tactics, smear campaigns, or sudden displays of affection designed to lure you back. But if you remain steadfast in your decision, the narcissist is forced to confront the inescapable truth. Their control was never absolute. It existed only as long as you permitted it. And therein lies the ultimate lesson. Your decision to walk away is not just an act of liberation, it is a declaration of your inherent dignity and worth. It is a statement that you will no longer be held hostage by another person's insecurity. And in making that choice, you do more than shatter their control. You reclaim your own. You take back the authority over your mind, your emotions, and your life. And in doing so, you deliver the one blow the narcissist cannot withstand, the realization that they no longer have power over you. The truth is, a narcissist's control only works if you agree to play along. The moment you refuse, the entire illusion collapses. And when you walk away for good, you force them to face a reality they cannot alter. You are free, and they are powerless to stop you. When you walk away from a narcissist, you don't just disrupt their ability to control your thoughts and emotions. You dismantle the very identity they have carefully constructed. At the core of a narcissist's psychological makeup is a fragile and false self. This false self is an elaborate mask they wear to hide the profound insecurity and self-loathing they dare not confront. The image they project, confident, superior, untouchable, isn't real. It's a defense mechanism built layer by layer to shield themselves from the pain of their unresolved inadequacies. And this mask only holds together if people around them continue to reflect back the image they want to see. The moment you step away, you shatter that illusion. To understand why this is so devastating, we must first recognize that narcissists do not possess a stable, coherent sense of self. Most people, over time, develop an identity that is grounded in their values, experiences, and relationships. But for a narcissist, their identity is entirely dependent on external validation, what psychologists call narcissistic supply. This supply comes in many forms: admiration, attention, control over others, even your pain. It's not simply that they want to be admired, they need to be. Without a constant stream of affirmation, their sense of self begins to deteriorate. When you engage with a narcissist, whether positively or negatively, you are feeding this need. Every emotional reaction you provide reinforces their belief that they matter, that they are significant enough to provoke a response. But when you walk away, you deliver a message they cannot bear to receive, that they are irrelevant. Your absence is a mirror they cannot escape, reflecting back the truth they've been avoiding, that without someone to manipulate, without someone to prop up their false image, they are nothing. What's important to grasp here is that the narcissist's identity is fundamentally hollow. It is not built on a foundation of genuine self-worth or inner security. Instead, it is a patchwork of external approval and carefully managed impressions. And because this identity is so fragile, even a single act of defiance, your decision to walk away, can unravel it. They lose the ability to define themselves through you, and with that loss comes an unbearable sense of emptiness. This is why narcissists react with such intensity when someone removes themselves from their grasp. It is not just a rejection, it is an existential threat. It forces them to confront the terrifying question they spend their lives avoiding: who am I if no one is watching? And the answer, which they are desperate to deny, is that without external validation, they feel like nothing at all. Your absence forces them to face that void directly, and few experiences are more psychologically destabilizing for them. But the effect goes deeper still. Your decision to walk away doesn't just dismantle their external facade. It undermines the very narrative they've built around the relationship. Narcissists tend to rewrite reality to serve their self-position. If something goes wrong, it's never their fault, it's yours. If the relationship deteriorates, it's because you were ungrateful or flawed. This distortion allows them to maintain the belief that they are always in the right. But when you leave, and especially if you do so with dignity and clarity, you introduce a truth they cannot control. You force them to confront the fact that they did not have the final say. You broke free, and in doing so, you denied them the power to define how the story ends. And this is where the psychological torment deepens. Narcissists are obsessed with narrative control. They need to be seen as the hero, the victim, or the dominant figure. When you walk away and refuse to engage, you strip them of the ability to frame themselves in these roles. They can no longer position themselves as the benevolent partner or the misunderstood sufferer. Instead, they are left with a reality they cannot manipulate, a reality where you decided they were no longer worthy of your time or attention. This loss of narrative control is profoundly unsettling because it exposes a truth they have fought to bury. They are not as powerful as they believed. No amount of manipulation can change the fact that you chose to leave. And this realization shatters the illusion they hold most dear, that they are the central figure in everyone's world. Your absence makes it clear that their influence is not absolute. And that truth, once exposed, cannot be undone. But perhaps the most profound consequence of your departure is the message it sends about your own worth. By walking away, you assert something the narcissist cannot tolerate, that you value yourself more than you value their approval. This act of self-respect directly contradicts the message they have tried to instill in you, that you are only valuable through their validation. In leaving, you reclaim your autonomy, and in doing so, you deny them the power to define your identity. And this is why walking away is so devastating. It doesn't just disrupt their external control. It tears apart the fragile psychological foundation that holds their world together. It forces them to confront the reality of their emptiness, their lack of genuine self-worth, and the limits of their power. And for someone who has spent a lifetime constructing an elaborate illusion to hide these truths, that confrontation is nothing short of shattering. In the end, your decision to walk away is more powerful than any argument you could make, any emotional outburst you could deliver. It is a quiet, definitive statement that speaks volumes. I am not your pawn, and you do not define me. And for a narcissist, there is no greater defeat